Hi everyone, my name is Tricia Miller and I'm the head registrar at the Georgia Museum of Art. For those of you who may not know, a museum registrar manages the collection of objects owned by a museum, overseeing the logistics of moving objects, the documentation of objects, and the long-term preservation of objects in the collection. Generally, the word preservation means activities performed to prolong the life of an object. In a museum, preservation means controlling the environment in which an object exists to slow its process of deterioration. Three important environmental factors that can affect museum objects are light, air, and what comes in contact with the object. When you visit a museum, you may notice that the galleries seem somewhat dark and rarely have windows. Just like the UV rays from the sun or from artificial light can damage your skin, these rays can damage museum objects as well. An object exposed to sunlight may fade or even darken or change color, permanent damage that cannot be treated or undone. Even some artificial lights emit UV rays and can be damaging. Museums do their best to limit light exposure for their objects. They are carefully lit when on view in the galleries, often at low light levels, and then stored in the dark. We store our works on paper in these cylinder boxes, which keep the work shielded from unnecessary exposure to light. This watercolor is an example of how light exposure can change an object. Notice how the edges where the paper had previously been matted are much brighter than the central area, which darkened and changed with exposure to light. You've also probably noticed that it seems cold in museums that you visit. Museums try to maintain consistent temperature and humidity levels to help preserve their objects. Generally, the temperature is kept around 70 degrees Fahrenheit and the relative humidity at 50%. Frequent and wide changes in temperature and humidity can make objects expand and contract, which quickens their decay, so museums do their best to avoid these types of changes. Extremes in temperature and humidity can also encourage other types of damage on objects. On this print, you can see brown spots and discoloration. This damage is called foxing and is caused by mold growth on paper or the oxidation of iron particles in the paper. Exposure to humid conditions can encourage foxing like this. Another important factor in preserving museum objects is controlling what comes in contact with the objects. You've probably seen signs in museums asking you not to touch, and you notice that I'm wearing gloves. The oils and dirt on your hands can be transferred to an object and react with it, tarnishing silver or leaving a buildup of smudges on a painting, a frame, or a sculpture. So we wear gloves whenever we need to touch or move an object. We're also thinking about what types of materials are coming in contact with our objects. What are the materials made of, and will they react with our objects? We often use the word archival when talking about preserving objects. Something archival is chemically stable and of a neutral or basic pH. Ideally, it's also durable and may even protect an object from other harmful environmental factors. A more specific term is acid-free. Acids react with objects, making them break down faster, so we look for materials that are acid-free to hold or store our objects. Before this print came to the museum, it was stored stacked with other acidic materials. You can see where another sheet of paper or perhaps a piece of cardboard left a dark mark on the print where the acids reacted with the paper. We mat all of our works, such as this print, in acid-free mat board. That way we can store the print long-term, knowing that the material holding it will not react with it or make it deteriorate faster. These are just a few examples of how registrars and other museum professionals are preserving museum objects. I hope you've enjoyed this brief glimpse behind the scenes at the Georgia Museum of Art, and thanks for watching.